The room was already too loud. Flashes of cameras burst like lightning strikes across the sea of people squeezed into every inch of the ballroom. The energy buzzed, a mix of thrill and tension, the kind that only came when power and showmanship collided. The K. Bailey Hutchison Convention Center in Dallas was packed wall to wall. It wasn't just a rally. It felt more like a coronation. Donald Trump stood backstage, nodding silently to the rhythm of the crowd's chants. Trump, 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 the familiar roar echoed through the corridors. He adjusted his tie with one hand while glancing at the mirror with the other. The man staring back was exactly who he believed the country needed. Bold, untouchable, always in control. Beside him, his inner circle whispered final notes about optics, poll numbers, and media talking points. Outside, security had been tripled without fanfare. Snipers on the roof, Secret Service agents posted at every hallway, intersection, and local police lining the perimeter. Something felt different tonight. No one said it aloud, but the air had changed. Some called it intuition. Others called it fear. Then, without warning, the lights dimmed. Music boomed. The crowd rose like a tide. Trump emerged with his signature grin, his slow, confident walk timed perfectly with the rhythm of the stage music. Phones rose high. Signs shook. The chants grew louder. But 5 minutes into his speech, the shift began. It started as a murmur. A small, almost imperceptible ripple in the crowd. Then came the gasps, followed by hundreds of heads turning toward the back of the hall. The press section parted slightly. Camera crews stumbled to refocus. And through this space walked a figure. In a dark blazer, poised steady, completely alone. It was Denzel Washington. No entourage. No press release, no announcement. Just him. The moment was electric. Even the applause began to waver, curiosity overpowering allegiance. Denzel moved with measured steps, not seeking attention, but commanding it with his presence. He didn't rush, he didn't wave. He simply walked. Trump stopped mid-sentence, blinking. The teleprompter kept scrolling, but his eyes were fixed on one man. His mouth opened again, but the words that came out weren't scripted. Wait, what's going on? He motioned to the wings. Who let him in? The crowd, unsure whether to cheer or jeer, buzzed with confusion. Some raised their phones higher. Others shouted insults. But Denzel didn't respond. He walked down the side aisle, stopping about halfway, and turned toward the stage. 2 security agents flanked the edge of the crowd, eyes locked on Trump's nod. They moved in fast, but Denzel lifted his hand, not in aggression, not in defiance, but as if to say, wait. Just give me 60 seconds, he said. His voice was calm, steady, and louder than it should have been without a microphone. 60 seconds, then I'll leave. The room froze. A hush swept across the floor like wind through a wheat field. Even the music, the buzzing lights, the murmuring stage crew, everything stilled. It was as if time had been sliced open, and the universe itself leaned in to listen. Trump stood at the podium, unsure. His lips twitched, weighing reaction against optics, pride against strategy. His team on the sidelines gestured for action. The crowd was waiting. The cameras were rolling, but there was something about Denzel's tone. Something in his eyes. Something that made even the boldest hesitate. Go ahead, Trump finally said, his voice flat. Denzel nodded once. Thank you. He turned to the audience, not to Trump, not to the cameras, but to the people. I'm not here to disrespect anyone, he began, and I'm not here to make a scene. His voice was smooth but carried weight, each word balanced like it had been sculpted in stone. I came here because I believe there's a difference between silence and peace. Because silence can be used to cover up pain. And peace, real peace, only comes when truth walks through fire and still stands tall. He let the words sink in. I watched the coverage, he said, looking directly at the audience. I watched black mothers cry on television. I watched veterans get ignored. I watched teachers being laid off, health workers struggling, children going hungry. And I asked myself, where's the outrage? Where's the courage? The room was no longer frozen. It was leaning forward. Trump gripped the podium, his expression unreadable. I know what this looks like, Denzel continued. A Hollywood man walking into a political stage. But this isn't about me. This is about the idea of America, not the brand, not the flag used for marketing. The real thing, the promise that everyone here matters. He looked up toward the rafters, where the American flag hung, illuminated in spotlight. So if you need me gone now, he said, I'll go. He stepped back. No one moved, not the security, not Trump. Not even the crowd. Then came a whisper from somewhere in the back. One voice. Let him speak. Then another. Yeah, a slow rumble. Louder this time. Speak, let him talk. And suddenly, it wasn't just whispers. It was a wave. The chance came again. Not for Trump. But for Denzel. Let him speak. Let him speak. Trump's jaw clenched. His fingers tapped the podium. One of his advisors stepped forward, whispering something sharp in his ear. Trump glanced sideways, looked back at Denzel, then turned off the mic with a quiet click. He walked away. He didn't say a word. The stage was empty. The light stayed on. Denzel stood in the glow, speechless for the first time. And just like that, a Hollywood man who came for 60 seconds had the entire country holding its breath. But what no one knew, not yet, was that the moment had already triggered something behind the scenes. Something dark. Something personal. Because what Denzel said wasn't just about politics. It was about a file. File only a few. The ballroom never recovered from the silence. Cameras kept flashing, but now their focus had shifted. It wasn't the stage, or the golden lights above, or the security guards lining the walls. It was Denzel Washington, standing alone, unmoving, in the middle of a political storm he didn't create, but had just completely altered. Behind the scenes, chaos had erupted. Trump's single quotes S team scrambled in a side room marked "Authorized Only." Advisors were pacing, some shouting into phones, others trying to coordinate rapid media responses. Headlines were already appearing online. Denzel crashes Trump rally, crowd cheers. Trump walks off stage mid-speech, actor left. Standing. Is this the moment everything changes? But none of that was the real emergency. The real problem was the folder sitting on a polished oak table in a secured room 2 floors above the convention center. 3 people were in the room. 2 were operatives from Trump's private legal and security network. Men with no official titles, no digital history, and no business cards. The third was a woman, calm, sharply dressed, and silent. Her name was Melina Wade, former intelligence analyst turned private political fixer. She was one of the few people Trump trusted completely, and even then, only barely. Melina flipped open the folder with gloved fingers. He knows, she said coldly. The taller operative leaned forward. How much? Melina turned a page. The photo stapled to it was of a military base, burned edges. Satellite timestamp from 5 years ago, classified until 2 weeks ago. It showed things no journalist had ever published, enough to ruin this entire cycle, she replied. We buried this. Clearly not deep enough. The file had been nicknamed Echo. Its contents? A list of secret offshore transactions involving weapons contracts, foreign companies, and a shadow agreement signed under executive privilege during the final year of Trump's first term. It included names of individuals declared enemies of the state, and, worse, silent payments made to keep them quiet. There were pages that connected those actions to specific deaths. And there, on the final page, was something unthinkable. A leaked signature. Forged. Trump, single quotes S. Not a copy. not digital. A physical page, taken from an internal archive no longer supposed to exist. And the initials beside the leak? D.W. Molina, single quotes S. Hand hovered over that page longer than the others. He's not just making this speech, she whispered. He's setting something in motion. Back in the ballroom, the audience had begun to stir. People were whispering, checking their phones, uploading clips of the scene. The media tried to control the narrative, but the story had grown beyond them. Denzel remained quiet. He hadn't spoken since Trump left. Instead, he looked across the sea of faces. Some curious, some confused, some quietly afraid, not of him, but of what his presence meant. A journalist finally called out, "Mr. Washington, are you here to announce something?" He didn't answer. Another shouted, "Was that staged? Are you part of a campaign?" Still, nothing. It wasn't until a young woman in the front row, a former high school teacher, wearing a pin that read, "Educators for Change," stood up and asked, "What are they hiding from us?" That Denzel finally reacted. He turned, slowly, met her eyes, and walked off the stage. No words. Just action. That moment, too, went viral. Meanwhile, somewhere in a building not listed on any public record, a different kind of meeting was taking place. A federal judge named Harold Matheson had just received a private message. It was a name he hadn't heard in years. Denzel Washington. Attached to the message was a digital packet labeled "Courtroom. Phase initiate only if hostile suppression fails." Judge Matheson opened the file. His eyes narrowed. Inside was a sealed motion requesting emergency testimony in front of a congressional committee, with an unprecedented supporting document, the original version of the Echo file. The file was set to be delivered to his courtroom in less than 24 hours, but Matheson wasn't the only one who received it. A white envelope had been left outside the office of investigative journalist Amira Cole, editor at an independent news site known for uncovering truth where no one dared look. She opened it under the glow of her desk lamp. Inside was one sheet of paper. 7 words. "Your silence paid for 3 funerals." Beneath it, a location, one that had been burned down 5 years ago. Amira's hands trembled. She hadn't thought of that name in years. Not since the story was killed, her sources vanished, and her own apartment had been broken into, with nothing stolen but one hard drive. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she began to type. Breaking, something bigger than politics is coming. But while the media scrambled and the courts prepared, Denzel had returned to his hotel room. Silent, he stared at the night skyline through a thick glass window. He didn't need the fame. He didn't need the cameras, but he did need the truth. He opened his bag. Inside, wrapped in black cloth, was the original physical version of the file. Not a scan, not a copy, the one with the real signature. He held it for a moment. Breath. Then opened a second envelope, one marked with 3 initials and a red wax seal that hadn't been broken since 2019. It was time. He dialed a number. On the other end, a voice answered. "We knew you'd come back," it said. Denzel replied, calm, determined. "It's not just about coming back. It's about finishing what we started." And somewhere, in a room surrounded by power and fear, Donald Trump sat alone at a desk. On it, a monitor replayed Denzel's 60-second speech. Over and over. He didn't blink. His phone buzzed. Molina single quotes. His voice was clipped. "We have a problem. The courtroom's been triggered." Trump leaned back in his chair. "Then stop him before he speaks." The next morning, the media couldn't keep up. Major networks scrambled to make sense of the last 12 hours. One headline read, "Hollywood versus Washington. Denzel stuns Trump rally," while another asked bluntly, "What's in the file?" But the real storm hadn't reached their studios yet. It had just arrived at Courtroom 6A in the District Federal Courthouse, under strict lockdown. The presiding judge, Harold Matheson, had been on the bench for over 3 decades. He had seen everything from organized crime to high-profile corruption cases. But this felt different. There were no cameras, no press allowed. Just the sound of shoes clicking down marble floors as the courtroom filled quietly with key officials. 3 legal observers, a federal clerk, 2 defense attorneys from Trump's legal arm, and a single, unexpected visitor. Denzel Washington. He entered wearing a dark suit and no expression. He walked like a man who had already buried something and was now ready to dig it up. Judge Matheson cleared his throat as he looked across the room. "This hearing has not been publicized," he said, glancing at the sealed walls, "because the matter at hand involves classified documents, personal security threats, and the integrity of our democratic processes." His eyes locked on Denzel. "Mr. Washington, you are not a government official, and yet here you are." Denzel stepped forward. His voice didn't tremble. "I'm not here for politics, Your Honor. I'm here for truth." He placed the file, the one marked Echo, on the table in front of him. The room tensed. Even the air seemed sharper. One of Trump's attorneys, a tall man in a gray pinstripe suit, immediately objected. "This is a media stunt. An actor trying to weaponize fiction in a courtroom. Your Honor, we demand to know the origin of this alleged file." Judge Matheson raised his hand. "And you'll get your answer." He turned to Denzel. "Where did you obtain this?" Denzel replied calmly, "From a source within the intelligence community. The same person who vanished 2 years ago after requesting whistleblower protection and never received it." "Do you have proof this source existed?" Denzel nodded. "Yes. And if necessary, I'm prepared to name them under oath." The courtroom stirred. The defense team shifted uncomfortably. They weren't expecting Denzel to be this composed. They weren't expecting evidence. Matheson leaned forward. "Mr. Washington, what is the nature of the information in this file?" "It documents illegal authorizations of force abroad, falsified signatures, secret payments to foreign operatives, and political cover-ups involving a sitting president." The judge blinked. "And you understand the gravity of that claim?" "Yes, and I also understand the cost of silence." Denzel opened the file and removed one sheet, a black and white photocopy with a digital watermark and a list of account transfers from an offshore bank. The account was traced to a shell company registered in Cyprus, but the final recipient? A US-based political fund that had recently fueled several rallies. The courtroom froze. The judge looked over the document slowly, but what struck him most wasn't the account itself. It was the signature authorizing the wire transfer. D. Trump. The defense team rose again, this time more aggressively. "Your Honor, this is circumstantial. It proves nothing. Anyone could have forged that." Denzel didn't flinch. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a flash drive. "This contains a private testimony, recorded 2 weeks before the source disappeared. It verifies chain of custody and names 4 individuals who handled the physical document. One of them now works in this very courthouse." Gasps filled the chamber. Judge Matheson gestured to the bailiff. "We will review this in chambers." But before he could move, the double doors at the back of the courtroom burst open. Everyone turned. 2 men in black suits entered. Secret Service. One carried a document. The other handed over a phone. "Judge," he said, "you're being asked to pause the hearing. Executive Order 1945 has been filed." Matheson stared at the screen. "A live call request. Donald J. Trump." He sighed and accepted. Trump's single quotes as voice came through, calm but laced with menace. "Judge Matheson, I'm told there's a rogue session happening with a Hollywood actor making legal threats. Now I respect your position, but I'd advise caution. You're not immune to consequences." Matheson raised his brows. "Mr. President, are you threatening a federal judge?" "No, I'm warning a friend." The call ended. The room was dead. Silent. Then Matheson spoke, voice heavy with authority. This court is not subject to intimidation, not from celebrities, not from presidents. He turned to Denzel. You may proceed. Outside the courthouse, crowds were already forming. Whispers of what was happening inside had leaked. People held signs. Others screamed at reporters. Helicopters circled overhead. And across the city, Amira Cole, the journalist who had received the mysterious envelope, was on the phone with an anonymous source. They've already moved him, the voice said. You need to act fast. Where? Riverside Data Vault, downtown. Amira's heart pounded. The vault was one of the most secure private data centers in the state, where digital secrets were buried under steel and concrete. And if the rumors were true, it held the original surveillance footage from a military base, footage linked to the echo file. Amira grabbed her camera and ran. Meanwhile, inside the courtroom, Judge Matheson reviewed the next set of documents. Denzel presented. This time, it wasn't just paper. It was video. A soldier, young, shaken, speaking directly to the camera. They told us it was just recon. But the moment we landed, it was chaos, civilians, unarmed. We weren't supposed to be there. But the orders had already been signed. The screen cut. Then another face. A technician. I saw the log. The command came from inside the US. It was signed by someone who hadn't been in office for months. The judge's hands gripped the bench. I want these files verified immediately, he ordered. Denzel leaned forward. Your Honor, there's more. How much more? Enough to change the story of this country. The judge nodded slowly, then let the story begin. But deep in a command room, far from the courtroom, Melina Wade was watching the live stream in silence. She turned to her assistant. Activate Omega. You're sure? They've crossed the line. We're no longer containing a leak. We're at war. Outside, the sky began to darken. And for the first time in years, Denzel Washington knew he had stepped into. Inside courtroom 6A, time seemed to stretch. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, but no one blinked. The judge, the attorneys, the agents, even the marble walls seemed to lean in closer. What started as a dramatic walk-in by a Hollywood actor had now evolved into a full-scale federal emergency. And yet, Denzel Washington stood there, steady, calm, and precise. The screen at the front of the courtroom dimmed. A new video began playing. This is it, Denzel whispered to himself. The part they erased. On the screen was a hidden body cam recording, buried for over 5 years. Grainy, time-stamped, but painfully real. It showed a small desert compound. Foreign soil, early dawn. A group of soldiers entered silently. There were no weapons drawn from the people inside. No threats. Just children and elders, asleep. The lead soldier hesitated. These aren't targets, he whispered to his comms. The voice that came back was chilling. Proceed. Orders confirmed. Code, Patriot Pulse. Then came the screams, confusion. A split-second decision. Smoke, fire, and silence. Judge Matheson's jaw tightened. Who authorized this? Denzel handed him a document, the original ghost order. Signed and executed under a false identity. The one the echo file uncovered. The judge turned pale. And this, Denzel added, reaching for the final sealed envelope, is the real twist. He opened it. A handwritten letter from Thomas Shepard, a former White House aide presumed dead in a car explosion 3 years ago, now revealed to be alive and in hiding. His letter read, If you're reading this, it means I failed to stop them. The order wasn't just about an operation. It was a rehearsal. The real plan was to use the ecosystem during election season to destabilize international borders and justify emergency powers at home. It was never about safety. It was about control. Denzel has the real key, and he knows where to take it. Judge Matheson slammed the file shut. Court is adjourned until all contents are independently verified. Mr. Washington, remain available for federal inquiry. But Denzel had already turned away. Not to escape, but because he knew what was coming next would not happen in the courtroom. It would happen in public. Out in the streets. In the media. And in the shadows. Location. Riverside Data Vault. Amira Cole had made it. She stood outside a concrete facility wrapped in steel and surveillance cameras. The vault had no sign, no official registry, and no visible entrance. Just a door that required 5 levels of biometric access. But Amira had something no one else did, a badge. Sent anonymously. It opened the first gate. Inside, the air was cold. Fluorescent lights buzzed above endless rows of servers. Humming machines that stored the world's most dangerous secrets. She followed the directions on the note. Aisle 14, locker 212, lower compartment. She slid it open. A single external drive, black, unmarked, plugged in. On the screen beside it, 1 video, 1 document, and 1 audio message titled, "If I Disappear." She pressed play, a man's voice shaken. "This is Thomas Shepard. If you're hearing this, they found me. I never wanted to be a hero. I just wanted to stop what I saw happening. We thought Echo was about safety, but it was about turning elections into war zones, and the one pulling the strings. He's not in the White House. He's behind it." Amira froze. "Trump?" She whispered. But the next line made her knees buckle. "No. It's the man who erased him from the real chain of command. His name is Nathan Rohr." She knew that name. Former CIA contractor turned political advisor. Vanished after a scandal, presumed imprisoned overseas. She thought he was dead. But now, he was the one orchestrating it all. The real puppet master. Suddenly, the lights flickered. She wasn't alone. A shadow moved between the racks. Amira pulled the drive and ran. Behind her, a figure stepped out. She has the ghost file. Back in Washington, Donald Trump sat in a private room, glass of water in hand, watching the court hearing playback on loop. Melina Wade entered, holding a new folder. "It's confirmed," she said. Shepard's voice matched. "And the file?" Trump asked. "We didn't bury it deep enough." "Then find Denzel." "He's not hiding," Melina replied. "He's heading to Los Angeles." "For what?" Melina hesitated. "He's going live. On the one stage even we can't control, the award show broadcast." Trump's knuckles whitened. "He's going to use Hollywood." "No," Melina corrected. "He's going to weaponize truth." Los Angeles, 48 hours later. Red carpet shimmered under the California sun. Media swarmed celebrities, asking about their films, their outfits, their causes. But backstage, something else was happening. Denzel stood in a private room with 2 producers, a stage manager, and a live feed tech. The broadcast would go out to 28 million people. He wasn't going to talk about his movie. He was going to show the world a document. Not fiction. Not theory. Poof. But as he waited for his cue, an assistant rushed in. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent." Denzel turned slowly. It was Irah. Breathing hard. "Holding the drive. You're not the only one who got the truth," she whispered. "But they're coming. They know we're about to go live." Denzel took the drive, glanced at the screen. A countdown. 10 minutes to broadcast. His voice was steady. "Then we go now." He turned to the producer. "Patch this into the satellite feed. Open with it. No edits, no commentary." The man hesitated. "This could cost everything." Denzel stared him down. "Then it's worth everything." Outside, agents were already circling. Melina Wade gave the command into her earpiece. "Shut it down. Now." But it was too late. Inside the control room, the file was uploading. Not just to television. To every major platform. Denzel walked to the stage entrance. Mic clipped, lights above him. As the camera's red light turned on, he took one The countdown hit 0. And then, a black screen. No logos. No sponsor ads. No network branding. Just silence. Then the faint crackle of audio. A soft voice. Familiar, steady. My name is Denzel Washington, and I'm not here to win an award. The camera faded in. There he stood, center stage, under a single spotlight, in a sea of shimmering gowns and tailored tuxedos. This was Hollywood's biggest night, but no one was smiling. Not anymore. No music played. Only stillness. I came here tonight, Denzel continued, because there's something the world needs to see. Not a film, not a speech, a file. He held up a small black drive. This contains footage, documents, and testimony from people who are no longer alive. People who were silenced because they tried to tell the truth. And now, I'm going to show you what they died trying to reveal. The crowd didn't move. Some froze mid-sip. Others slowly lowered their phones. The screen behind Denzel came to life. Grainy surveillance clips, military documents, satellite overlays, hidden video recordings. One after another, undeniable. Real names, real timestamps, real crimes. Echo. Offshore accounts, illegal operations, falsified reports, civilians erased, evidence forged. All linked back to a single directive, and the signature at the bottom? Donald J. Trump. A wave of gasps filled the auditorium. Some people stood. Others looked away, unable to process what they were seeing. Denzel kept speaking. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're not opinions. This is the raw truth, the kind that changes everything. And whether you're sitting in this room, or watching from your home, or working in a newsroom that's been afraid to report it, you now have a choice. He paused. Silence or courage. The camera panned across stunned celebrities, producers, political figures who had shown up expecting glitz and glamour, not judgment. Then the screen changed again. A live feed from Amira Cole, standing outside the Riverside data vault. We've verified the digital signatures, she said into the mic. We've traced the financial transfers. We have hard copies of the surveillance footage, now secured in 3 separate locations across 2 countries. This isn't just a leak. It's a collapse. Inside the control room, technicians stared in shock. The entire network feed had been hijacked. They couldn't cut it, couldn't censor it. The file was broadcasting everywhere. Television, social media, streaming platforms, news. Tickers. Phones across America buzzed at once. Breaking. Denzel Washington drops political bombshell live. Classified military program exposed. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Trump watched it unfold on 5 screens. His jaw locked. Melina Wade burst into the room. We have a national media blackout request drafted, she said quickly. We can still spin this. Trump didn't speak. He just stared at Denzel's face. On the screen, sir, Melina added, voice tightening. We need to act now, Trump finally whispered. I told them to remove him. And now the world's removing me. He stood. Walked to the window. The streets below were already flooding with people, holding signs, crying, shouting. Some were angry, some were afraid, but none were silent. Back in the auditorium, security agents flooded backstage, trying to end the broadcast, but they were too late. The feed had already replicated across decentralized servers worldwide. It was irreversible. Denzel looked toward the camera one final time. I didn't come here to start a war, he said, but sometimes, when you pull the curtain back far enough, the truth becomes a revolution. A standing ovation erupted, but not for entertainment. For truth, for bravery, for a man who walked into power's deepest hallways and refused to whisper. That same night, a congressional emergency session was called. Judge Harold Matheson was sworn in to deliver the findings from Courtroom 6A. He stood before the nation's leaders and said, the documents presented in court are legitimate. The testimonies are credible, and the criminal activity extends beyond partisan lines. Gasps echoed across the chamber. What I saw demands accountability, regardless of title, regardless of fame. No one is above justice. Across the country, the fallout began. News networks reversed their coverage. Politicians who once stood with Trump began issuing statements of shock, betrayal, and disassociation. But the people? They marched not in fear, not in rage, but in unity. For the first time in years, the lines drawn between left and right began to blur, replaced by one question burning in everyone's heart. How did we let this happen? And Denzel? He walked out of the building alone. No security. No limousine. Just the streetlight casting his shadow on the sidewalk. I caught up with him. You know they'll come after you now. They already did. You exposed an empire. He looked at her. No, I gave the people back their voice. A beat passed. Then, he said quietly. But there's one last piece missing. Amira frowned. What? The man behind it all. The one pulling the strings. Amira nodded slowly. Nathan Rohr. Denzel turned his eyes to the sky. I'm going to find him. Somewhere in an undisclosed location. A man sat in front of multiple monitors. He wore a black coat. His face was shadowed. One hand clutched a glass of scotch. He clicked play. Denzel's broadcast filled the room. He smirked. So the actor became the rebel, he whispered. Then he turned to a new folder. They called it the biggest truth drop in American history. Overnight, the internet transformed into a battlefield of belief and backlash. Everywhere, people argued, cried, marched, collapsed. Hashtags like #EchoLeak, #DenzelDrop, and #TruthIsNow trended in over 50 countries. Some demanded accountability. Others screamed conspiracy. But the one thing no one could do anymore was pretend they didn't know. Denzel Washington had thrown a match onto dry ground. And now everything was burning. But not everyone was watching the flames. Some were watching Denzel. Location: private airstrip. Outside Los Angeles, the plane hummed quietly under a dark sky. No logos, no flags. Just a small light over the stairwell. Denzel stood beside it, waiting. A voice crackled in his earpiece. You have 10 minutes until extraction. He nodded. Amira Cole stepped beside him, holding a silver case. This has the original master drive, she said. Surveillance, court, footage, recordings, everything. Make sure it gets to Berlin. The encrypted servers there are neutral. Amira hesitated. What if this isn't over? Denzel looked at her, serious. It's not. This wasn't the war. It was the alarm bell. Before she could speak again, a sound echoed behind them. Tires on gravel. A black SUV pulled into view. One man stepped out, a face both familiar and feared. Nathan Rohr. Older now, colder, but unmistakably powerful. The man behind the curtain, no longer hiding. Mr. Washington, he said calmly. I figured we'd meet in person eventually. Denzel didn't move. You should have stayed buried, he replied. Rohr smiled. You think this is about exposure? About guilt? He stepped closer. This is about recalibration. Sometimes the system needs a scare. Chaos isn't failure, it's fuel. You killed people, Denzel said, his voice low, controlled. I removed obstacles. Rohr replied. And now you've made me a bigger one. He reached into his coat. Amira flinched, but Rohr didn't pull a weapon. He pulled a tablet. And tapped play. A live satellite feed appeared. An unknown server room in a different country, already under attack. Reset protocol, Rohr said. Every drive you leaked, every system you touched, we're erasing them now. Not just the evidence. The people too. Journalists, whistleblowers, anyone connected to Echo. Denzel's hands clenched. You think people won't notice? Rohr raised an eyebrow. They'll forget. They always do. But that's when Amira stepped forward and said 4 words that shifted the world. We cloned the cloud. Roar. Blinked. What? Amira smiled. Before the drop, we sent mirrored copies to 34 international human rights organizations, tech watchdogs, and journalists. Air-gapped and off-grid. Even if you wipe one, 20 more live. Roars. Face dropped for the first time. You little. Denzel cut him off. It's over. But Roar's eyes lit up again. No, now it begins. 20 hours later, emergency hearings exploded across Capitol Hill. Senators shouted across the aisle. Calls for a full investigation were met with demands for delay. Officials scrambled to frame the narrative while the public lit up the streets with truth. Judge Matheson was placed under federal protection. Amira Cole was named Journalist of the Year by multiple global watchdog groups. And Denzel? He disappeared. No one knew where he went. 2 weeks later, a hidden broadcast leaked online. A dark room, a single chair, and Denzel, face half lit, speaking directly into the lens. They tried to shut it all down, tried to scare us, discredit us, erase us. But they can't erase the people. He held up a small key. The truth now lives in every device, every home, every heart that refused to look away. He leaned forward. They had a plan called Reset, but now we're the reset. The feed ended. Final reports concluded. Over. 70 high-level officials resigned or were placed under criminal investigation. Nathan Rohr vanished. Believed to be operating from outside U.S. jurisdiction, an independent body called the Truth Commission was formed. Echo was officially declared a rogue program created without legal oversight. Trump refused to comment. His last public appearance was a 2-minute video stating, "This is all lies. Fake news, I'll be back." He hasn't been seen since. 6 months later, the world had changed. Not perfectly, not permanently, but enough. Denzel Washington was spotted briefly at a small school in Detroit, handing out books during a quiet charity visit. No cameras, no announcements. Just a man who had risked everything, now trying to return to something simple. A child asked him, "Why did you do it?" He smiled gently, "Because silence can be deadly." The boy tilted his head. "But weren't you scared?" Denzel crouched, meeting his eyes. "Yes, but being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do the right thing even when you are." Final scene: a quiet newsroom. Amira Cole sits alone, typing. She finishes her latest article and hits publish. The headline reads, "Truth wins because one man stood alone, and the world chose to stand with him." As the screen fades to black, one final line appears,